I'd like to welcome you all to our presentation this evening. My name is Bobby Taylor. I'm the library manager for the Archives and History Library, and we are very happy to have tonight's program for you. It's going to be a very exciting one, and I'd like to do a little bit of promotion for some upcoming ones that we have. On August 7th, Jeff Pearson, director of the arts section, will speak about artists from West Virginia. That should be a really neat one. On August 9th, our own Susan Skoris will talk about West Virginia cookbooks. And I think that that's going to be really neat too. All of our lectures and workshops can be viewed on our YouTube site, which is accessible from our webpage. Tonight's speaker is Mary Glass, and she will be presenting a workshop lecture on getting the most out of FamilySearch.org in searching the 1940 census. She will be discussing utilizing information available in the recently released 1940 United States Census and tips on accessing the vast resources pertaining to West Virginia that are available at http:// I'll let her go into the website there because I'll probably say something wrong there. Mary Glass grew up in Kanawha County and now resides in Buckhannon. She obtained degrees in education from West Virginia University and Marshall University and has taught chemistry, physics, and gifted education. She is the past president of the West Virginia Association for the Gifted and Talented. And she's always had an avid interest in family history. She is a volunteer, indexer, and arbitrator for FamilySearch and serves as a family history consultant for the Buckhannon Ward of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce tonight's speaker, Mary Glass.
Well, family history research has changed considerably in the 35 years since I've been doing it. And it used to be that I would come here bringing my little children with me, and I figured that I could only spend an hour or two and have them keep their sanity and behave. So I would carefully prepare to research, go through microfilm reels, using the sound deck system, and would put my older children at work going through WPA records and searching for information. Now, we don't have to leave our homes to do an awful lot of research. It is truly amazing what is available on the internet. And we have much to thank the state of West Virginia for putting vital records online. It saves so much time and probably saves a lot of the workers here from being frazzled to death by people coming in. You know that the 1940 census was released in April, and everyone is anxious to get their hands on the census. How many of you have actually found a family member in the census, 1940 census? A number of you have. Very good. It is being indexed by volunteers throughout the world and can be accessed at this website, FamilySearch.org. About over half of the people who were living in the United States in 1940 have already been indexed, which is an amazing feat considering it's just been a couple months. they had a challenge for indexers and arbitrators to get online and index for one day to see if they could break the 5 million mark of names indexed in one day. Over 45,000 people indexed that day from their homes, and over 10 million names were indexed. To me, that's just phenomenal. I didn't index that day. We were in power outages here in West Virginia. So there were a lot of people here who weren't indexing. By any chance, do we have any indexers here? Any volunteers who index? Okay, let me tell you a little bit about indexing. Anyone can volunteer. And you'll see on the FamilySearch site where you can volunteer to index. And it sounds pretty hard, but it isn't. You download a program to your computer, and then you will download a batch. A batch generally consists of one page if it's a census record. So you have 40 names, and you have a spreadsheet, and you just type in the information on that spreadsheet. You have a week, up to a week to finish a page, and then submit it up online. Each page is indexed by 2 separate individuals. And then a third person arbitrates where there are discrepancies. So they're trying to avoid errors, particularly, you hit the wrong key, well, that happens. But sometimes the handwriting is so poor that you just take a stab in the dark and you do the best you can. But it really is an interesting and relaxing thing to do, and that's what I was doing a few minutes ago as I was sitting here. And I indexed half a page in the last 20 minutes. Not too bad. Speaking of 1940, I couldn't wait for this to come out. And I was so anxious to see the results that the day that I found out it was, West Virginia was released online, I got online and searched through the records. You can browse through records now. And I found every living ancestor of my children in a space of 7 hours. And that was exciting. And I learned things. I learned things about my parents. My mom was a teacher in Webster County. My dad grew up in Charleston. How in the world they ever crossed paths so that I could be born, that's pretty amazing. So I got clues whenever I was able to research and look at the 1947. I'm going to, if you go to the site, you'll come up with a form. How many of you have FamilySearch.org, let's say in the last year? Some of you, okay. It's a big change from the previous site. So this is a newer site. You can search in many, many ways. You can just put in first name and last name. Most people can find an ancestor within 5 minutes, a document on an ancestor, by using this particular search engine. Okay, on the upper right-hand corner, you see 1940 census. And if you check the progress, this is what the map looks like now. Everything that is in gold is now searchable. It's all been indexed, it's online, it's searchable. These that are dark are 80 to 100% completed. If you take your mouse and hover over top of a state, you'll see when you hover over West Virginia, it is 98% complete. Now, there are 2 states that are 100% complete that aren't searchable yet. It takes a little bit of time for them to get it online. to get all the links there. But we can expect, I would guess, West Virginia to be available in searchable form within 2 weeks. Looking at what's happened with other states. That's an exciting thing. Okay. In the meantime, you can find people in this manner, hopefully. My grandfather was George W. Spaniel. So I'm clicking on residence, and I put in Charleston, Kanawha, West Virginia. And I put the year, 1930, year range. That means I want to look at the 1930 census. I want to see the 1930 census. And when I click on that, I see 2 for George W. One in which he was the parent and one in which his son was also named George W. So if I click on that, we get this information. And so we see that he was living in Charleston. We see his estimated year of birth. We also see the sheet number, 11B, and the line number, 87. His enumeration district number was 40. So if you can explore viewing options. Unfortunately, the viewing options are, if you have Ancestry or some of these other sites, you can go to it through that site. It will link directly to you. If you don't, there is a free site. And you may want to write this down. All of the census records are online, the images, free of charge, at this site. It's not searchable, but if you search on FamilySearch and then you really want to see the record, if the record isn't visible, some records are and some are not. 1930 doesn't have to be. You can go to this site and look for that particular year and that particular county, state and county, and go page by page like you would with a microfilm and find it that way. Anyone need more time here? This is what the site looks like. Welcome to the United States Census. And this was put online by Allen County Public Library. Okay, we're not going to spend time on that site. Okay. I do have the 1930 census for my grandfather, and it says that he lives, the enumeration district was 20 through 40. He lives in Charleston, and he lived in the 9th Ward. So taking the 9th Ward, that narrows it down considerably. If you're looking in a rural county, if you know the district they lived in. Like my mother lived in the West Fork district of Webster County, or North Fork, or whatever it was. West Fork, maybe, I don't remember. But anyway, so I was able to go to that section and find her easily. Okay, we come back here. You can explore by location. So I put in West Virginia, I put in Kanawha, and I put in Charleston. And so we see all these magisterial districts. 3 of them have a 9. So that meant I have a few images to go through, and they also all say 20 through 50 some. So I know that it's in one of those 3 sections. And I simply click on it and then go page by page to find it. And what was interesting that family members lived a block apart, and they were in totally different districts. Okay. My grandfather, he lived on Charleston Street. His name was Spaniel, not quite a normal, usual name. And his address was 209 Charleston Street. So if it were still standing, I could go and look at his house. I can remember it as a child. And I can remember the big porch with 2 porch swings on it, the big garden in the back, turkeys running around in the backyard, and now on that property sits the town center. Big change, huh? Big change. So, I can also see that his house he owned, and it was valued at $10,000. His neighbors rented their homes, and this was their monthly rent, $20, $53, whatever. So he was one of the fortunate ones who owned his home. His wife's name was Mary Gertrude. And if you look above the name, let's see if I can do this. You see that little circle with an X in it? See that or not? Right there. That means that she was the person who gave the information, which is really valuable to know. This is the first census that gives that type of information. And when I looked at my mother's census record, the person who gave the information was the person she was living with. She was boarding with a family. So they didn't have her age right. So that kind of gives you clues that does this person know or does this person not know? I have an ancestor who lived in Pennsylvania, and it's the family that is just bizarre to try to research. And every year the ages, every census, the ages don't match, the names don't match. However, the oldest child was classified as an idiot from birth. And my husband says that he must be the one who was getting Okay, they have 3 children living at home. The oldest one had already left. And gives the relationship, head of household, wife, son, and son. Sometimes you see there beside the name an avid written, and that means that the person was absent. Absent, in other words, they normally live there, but they're not there at this time. Maybe they're on a trip, or maybe they, but they would stick an AV. Those aren't the initials of their names. That's means that they're just not there now. Okay. We see the sex, we see the race, and although down at the bottom of the page you'll see if they are African American, they should be classified as Negro. Sometimes they put a C down, and they have another thing for C. But in West Virginia, an awful lot of the census takers wrote down C for colored rather than N for Negro. It gives their ages, and then it gives their marital status. M for married, S for single, and WD for widowed. Now, it took me a while to figure out what in the world they were doing. You look, no, we don't really see it on this one. Sometimes you see an M, and you see a slash through it, and a 7 above it. Well, after seeing this quite a few times, those were people who were married but not living with their spouses. So, you know, they could have been abandoned, they could be separated, they could be a spouse working in another place, or in the military, but they are still married, so they are classified as married.
Why do 7?
Pardon?
You said a slash with a 7?
And, yeah, they just put a slash through it and then write a 7, which must have been some type of notation for some statistics they were gathering. Beyond that, you see level of education. So rather than saying how many years of school they have, and you have the number of years of school, like Rita was still in high school, she had 2 years of high school. She's still a student. My father, John, had 4 years of high school education. It's interesting that although I was told that only the youngest girl in my grandmother's family ever graduated from high school, she wrote that she had 4 years of education. However, she taught school, but back then you only had to have an 8th grade education to teach. And she went to nursing school, and she became a nurse. So she may have counted years of education as high school. Okay, if we scroll on over, and we can see here, they were all born in West Virginia, except for my grandmother, who was born in Pennsylvania. They were living in the same house in 1935. While their neighbors were living in the same place. They're living in the same place, they're living in the same town. Same house, they're actually living in the same building in which they lived 5 years before. Then over on the right, we have all these wonderful yeses and nos and H's and S's and whatever. And there are questions, and it's a little hard to read that. Are you employed? Were you employed in the last week of March of 1940? And so my grandfather said, yes, he was employed. And the youngest son said, yes, he was employed. My father said, no, he wasn't employed, but yes, he was looking for work. So, oh, I'm not doing too well there. Okay, on the right there, my grandmother said she was a housekeeper. That was the age. And my aunt said that she was a student. Okay, if we go on, these are the number of hours worked the last week of March. So, my grandfather worked 62 hours that week at his job. Well, my uncle worked 40 hours. And my father was unemployed for the last 37 weeks. My grandfather, occupation, he was a jeweler, and he worked in a jewelry store on Porter Street, I think it was, in Charleston. My father was a sheet metal worker. He did construction. This is still part of the Depression before the World War II. So he'd been out of work quite a while. My uncle was working at a chemical plant in a laboratory. I happen to know it was DuPont. They were all public workers, not government workers, which is the class of worker there. One over there, it said during the previous year, 1939, how many weeks did you work? My grandfather worked every week, 52 weeks. My father worked only 15 weeks that year. And my uncle, I cannot tell what in the world the census taker was meaning by what he wrote. Okay. The next column was how much money did they make the previous year? So my grandfather made the grand sum of $1,200 for that year of working long hours in a jewelry shop. Pardon?
Annual salary?
Annual, yes. My father, with his only 15 weeks doing construction work, made $577. So he was well paid when he had work, but he didn't have a lot of work. And then my uncle had made $115. Column 33, the next to last column was, did you have income of $50 or more last year, but not from employment? In other words, did you have rental property? Did you have investments? How did you earn money if you weren't employed? So this kind of gives you an idea of what was going on. My father took a job at a CCC camp in Webster County at Camp Caesar, teaching young men drafting skills. So he'd been out of work a long time. That's how he managed to meet my mother. So they were married in 1941. Okay. We're going to go back to this. There are several ways that you can search this site. One is to browse by location. So if you scroll down, you can browse by location, you click on that, and we'll say browse by the United States. So we have the United States, and we have all of these states mentioned with their things. So if we just scroll down, we can see all the censuses are there. Where you see a camera, that means that there are images of the document. You may or may not be able to access it. If you are in a family history center at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that is open 10 hours or more a week, you can access everything. But some you can access here and some not. You see it goes on down, the Social Security death index is there. A lot of military records are there for the United States, including draft registration cards, a lot of interesting information on them. And we go down to West Virginia, and we see West Virginia births, and christenings, Civil War records of Union soldiers, deaths and burials, West Virginia marriages, naturalization records, and will books. Some of them are still being indexed. The naturalization and the will books are still being indexed, but some of them are, what has been indexed is searchable. And we're going to look at the West Virginia marriages and see how it differs from the state side. You can search and those things will pop up, but if you're really interested in a particular record, it's easier to search on a specific record that you would like, if that makes sense, than doing a global search and giving everything you've got on this person. So if we go to marriages, this will pop up. And I will put in the name of my other grandfather, John Burke Skidmore. And I'm going to click on spouse. And search by multi-event, marriage. And we're going to West Virginia site, you can only search by one of the parties who's been married. In this case, if a person shows up on a record in any form, they will pop up. So if we look at this first one here, or the second one, we see the spouse is Mary E. Rutherford, and the child is Donald Levi Skidmore. And when we look at it, I had no idea where they were married. I found out they were married in Harrison County. And it gives the bride's parents, the groom's parents, their birth dates, and birthplaces. And if we go back and we click on the first one, we see that this is the marriage of my grandparents. And it says, an image for this record may be available at www.westvirginiaculture.org. Fees may apply. Well, there's no fees. So if we click on that, lo and behold, there's the document. To save the document, you right mouse click on the image, scroll down to say picture as, type the file name you want, choose to save it, and click on save. And you have that image on your computer. Okay. Now, this isn't West Virginia, but the same thing will apply to West Virginia. I found a Hannah Blake, and I knew Hannah's parents. I had no idea who she married. I found a marriage record for Hannah Blake, but that doesn't mean that it was the right Hannah Blake. You know, and Blake is not like Spaniel, it's much more common. So, I wanted to know if this was the same Hannah Blake that married George Boland, was the same one that was related to my husband. I had not been able to find the death record for her in Ohio, where I thought she died. And her marriage license did not name her parents. So, I went to the States, I went to Ohio, and clicked on that, and I went to Ohio deaths. Clicked on that. I didn't put her name in. I simply clicked on parents. I wrote the names of the parents. So I'm searching for any child, any death record for any child of those parents. And when I hit search, 3 children popped up. And one of them was Anna Boland. So then I knew, yes, I couldn't find it using Hannah, but on the death record it was Anna, but it was one and the same person. So then I knew. I clicked on that, and it gives all this information about her, even her street address. And over here it says, to see this image, you must sign in. And so it says, I clicked on it, it says view image, and it takes me to this site. So if you don't have a username and a password, you must create a new account to see it. There's no charge, no problem. For some reason, they have that accountability for the Ohio records. So you create an account, and then it lets you see the image. The West Virginia images look better than those. Much better. Okay. Let's look at West Virginia billboards. You can search the collection, or you can browse through 325 25,731 images. Oh, you gotta be kidding. Well, last night, I tried it again. I had tried searching before and not had any luck. And I found, hey, Kanawha County, which I was having the most trouble with because they weren't indexed as well as some of the other counties. Most of them were available. So I found a lot of wills for family members there. Up to, I think the most recent one was in the 60s, 1960s. Okay, if you're going to browse, it's not as bad as it looks. Okay, you click on it, you get each county. So, we look at Lewis County. And it's all will books. So you're going to, if you know when the person died, you're going to pick the category that applies to them. And I am looking for a Henry Butcher. And you see that he is on page 171. So if we go looking, notice that page 171 here is not 122 up there. So you just kind of have to jump around until you find the correct page, because you have all of those pages at the beginning that are the index or the table of contents for that particular book, and then you have 2 pages per image. So you can get to it. It's not the easiest in the world, but it doesn't take that long. Over on the right, you can make it bigger, smaller, get a section. You can copy this image and save it to your computer. Any questions about wills? You can do the same thing with naturalization records. And they're not, I was indexing some of the naturalization records, and they were awesome. Some of them actually had the photographs of the person on it. And lots of interesting information is available here. And sometimes names spelled, okay, this is the name that you came in on the boat, and this is the name you want to be called by when you're here. I have a feeling that they're searchable by both names, which is nice. Yes, sir.
I noticed the date as being 25, whatever it was. I'm assuming that was back to the Virginia County.
I'm sorry.
Those were West Virginia wills and the date.
Yes.
I'm assuming that was a Virginia.
Wills and marriages were recorded from the beginning of the county, even though it was Virginia at the time.
If we have a problem in Alabama with different counties that name other counties.
Yes.
If I search in Virginia, would I also find those counties back during that time? Or would I have to know that it eventually became West Virginia?
You need, no, you search by county when it became a county. Okay? For instance, I have ancestors who live in 3 different counties, and they were moved off the farm because new counties were formed. Wherever that particular record was formed, it is in the county in which they were living at that time. Does that make sense? And even though West Virginia was not a state until 1863, we have the birth and death records from 1853 onward. And then we have wills and land records and court records and marriages prior to that date, from the time the county was formed.
So depending upon the date that you're looking, so 18 something, if I were looking at Montgomery County, I would be fine. But if I were looking
to have a list of counties and where they were formed from. And in the book, Sims, The Making of a State, there are actually maps of the county's formation. So, one county may have been formed out of portions of 2 or 3 counties. So you kind of have to know just where you are. Make sense? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
That book you're referring to is over on the shelf over there, in case anybody needs to know that.
Very good. And it's a wonderful resource for that. I have not seen it anyplace else, but yes.
I have been to the Library of Virginia looking for records for an ancestor from the Civil War. And I have my father's birth certificate to list his parents. I have my grandmother's birth certificate which lists her parents. And then I have the next, and that generation is the Civil War generation. Okay. I cannot find a birth certificate, a death certificate, nor a marriage license. I went to the Library of Virginia, and they could find a request for a pension. He was shot in the hand, and he was captured and sent. He was Confederate. He was sent to a Union camp, and then he was discharged, and he did get a pension, and he died, and my great-great-grandmother was able to get a pension because of it. And it says on it, when were you married? And she wrote, before the war. No date. So, and her name was Mary. So I can't find any records except that he was the grandfather of my grandmother. I can trace back, marriage with birth certificates, marriage license. What do you do in the case of like that particular point of time? There just doesn't seem to be anything there.
Well, this is the best that I can do for you. With this right here. Because we've been dealing with the same problem. And we've also found that there's a hole, we hear about the donut hole. Well, there's a donut hole in Virginia in that the counties kept records from 1853 up to 1895, I believe it is. And then they were no longer required to keep records. And then the state picked it up in like 1912. So you got that whole gap where no records were kept. Unless people came and got the late birth certificates. So, yes.
So if you're trying to prove, say, daughters of the American Revolution, if there's no way to do that through with that time period.
Yeah, let me show you this. And we were just dealing with that same problem. Before 1850, only heads of households were listed on the census records. And so how do you put families together? So my husband's people came from Buckhannon County, Virginia. And we were just desperate to find something. So we used this format and we put in Buckhannon County, Virginia as the birthplace, and then put the year range from 1790 to 1850 and searched births, and that's what we wanted. And when we hit search, this is what we came up with. These people were all over the place. There were no birth records then, but they died. And some of them left birth information on death records. But that way we knew which ones were born in that county. And it's not definitive, but it's better than what we had.
There was a book that listed him as dying in 1898. And then when you go to the 1900 census, he's alive.
But,
So it's really, and it's the right family members. It's just really frustrating for that Civil War period to find anything. So I was curious if you had any suggestions.
no, but I'll show you some other things about the Library of Virginia, Joel. Do you realize they have the Library of Virginia online
Yes.
with all kinds of records? Okay. You can also search books here. And if you click on books, it says family history books. It includes histories of families, county and local histories, how-to books, magazines, periodicals, etc. So I just decided to do West Virginia. I started out with each one of my surnames, and it was laborious. And I thought, oh, there has to be a better way. So, let's go back. Yes, I didn't put in the page after I hit it, but there are many, many, many books, references on West Virginia. And some of them are cemetery books. All of these you can download to your computer. Whole books. And a lot of information. So, feel free to explore. Up at the top, we see catalog. And this is a catalog of everything that is available in Salt Lake City, like you're probably going to go there, huh? In the vast genealogical library there. Lots and lots and lots of microfilms. They would fill this whole building. There are so many. And you can search by place names, last names of individuals, titles, author information, subjects, etc. This is a beta site. They're working the kinks out of it. This whole family search site is changing month by month. And they're moving everything from the previous site, which I felt like I mastered using it. Now I'm having to learn a whole new way of accessing things. This one is more intuitive rather than cut and dry. And I miss the other site. For this, you can still visit the previous version. So over there, place sign, you have all those different things. And I'll show you what I was able to do, even though this isn't West Virginia. I'll very quickly go through it. It took me forever to find a relative who knew the city in Germany that my ancestors came from. Long time. And when I finally found it, I searched for this. And the name of the place was Landsweiler in Germany. And I searched, and this is what I got. This is the way that they pieced it together in terms of, like we would say, Charleston, Kanawha, West Virginia, United States. So this is the format they used. And they had two topics. I could either do the history, which I knew I wouldn't be able to read anyway, or genealogy, which is what I was really interested in. So I took up genealogy. And guess what? Here is a book with the genealogies of families that live in that city. You have to realize that under Hitler's time, people were researched to prove that you did not have Jewish blood. So, in this book, there were generations of family members of the people who that community. And this is pretty typical of Germany. Over on the right, it says, view fill notes. And when I do that, over here on the right, it gives you the numbers of the films. These are microfilms. So it's at the end of one microfilm and the beginning of another. So you have to order 2 microfilms. You can order them online, but they go to a family history library that's closest to you, and you must use it there. When I did that, and also did the keyword search, went to all our marriages, and went through that. There's all of these pieces. When I got all those microfilms and went through those, I was able to trace my family back 400 years. It was amazing, and I don't know German, and I had high school Latin. This family was Catholic, and the neat thing is that we can learn about topics here, and you can pick a foreign language that you want to do research in, and I'm going to view the courses. I'm going to put in Latin, and these are key words and phrases to use in genealogical research in Latin. And it was not that hard. Marriage records were harder because they were written in paragraph form, but the others were written in tabular form. And so if you could read the writings of the 1500s or the 1600s, and there are also, you can search handwriting, and it will give you handwriting lessons, how to enter handwriting. There's just an enormous amount of information here. Anything you want to learn that will help you do family history research, you can ask for it here, and something will pop up. Yes?
You made reference to people coming in on the boat and changing their name. I want to know more about that sometime before you're done. How do you know what the name was and what it can be?
Sometimes it's just like, it's hard. Sometimes you can read, well, this name is translated to be this. Sometimes water was changed to Warner because it was more common. But if you get hold of those naturalization records, if your ancestor was naturalized, and you can find that. And by the way, the 1940 census will tell if that person is a naturalized citizen or not, if they were born out of that. It's going to tell you on that because they apply. They have to write down, this was my name. I'm asking for this name, and usually when they go through the naturalization process, they are given a new name.
Okay.
That helps you.
Thank you.
Well, it may or may not help you, but
Well, I feel better.
good. Okay. There are wikis here. And I'm too old to appreciate a wiki. But you can research. If you look at West Virginia, you can see there are 975 wikis pertaining to West Virginia. So you can search more specifically for a particular okay, family search centers. If you're wondering where the one closest to you is, if you want to use it, you simply click on family search centers at the top. You put in your city and state, and it will tell you where the closest one is. And before it should tell you the hours they're open and who's in charge, but they're not always kept up to date. I would call before I went and make sure that they're still operating at those hours at that time, those days. Okay, these are sites that you can utilize free of charge Access Newspaper Archive, Alexander Street Press, on the American Civil War, Ancestry.com, Find My Past, Footnote.com, which has a lot of military records, the Genealogy, Heritage Quest Online, Historic Maps Works, Paper Trail, and World Vital Records. Yes,
I believe footnote.com is now fold 3.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, Library of Virginia. And this is the easiest access for that. If you are interested, I would write this down, or you can always search Library of Virginia online or Virginia Memory Collection. And this is www.virginiamemory.com. And the easiest way to access is /collections by topic. And there is an underline in between collections and by, and between by and topic. We were once part of Virginia, and so there are a lot of records for what is now West Virginia at this site, and with original documents that you can download. Among those documents, yes.
How far back do those documents go?
How old are they?
Yeah, how far back do they go?
Original land grants.
Any of the records? Yeah, the land grants in particular.
Okay, the things that are of the most interest to us as West Virginians, unless you're researching people in Virginia,
Yeah.
what's now Virginia, but the land grants, and if you search, you'd be amazed at probably how many of you have ancestors that contain the original land grants. And there are images of the actual documents. I have a land grant for one of my ancestors on the original parchment. Online, it's identical. Seal and everything. So it is available online for you to download. When you download them, they come in TIFF format. Most of us are have our pictures in JPEG format. This is in TIFF. I had trouble with a computer reading the TIFF files, and I just simply had to say, enable it to read the TIFF files and tell it. And if you have trouble with that, you try a kid over, and they will help you out. Yes.
Brenda and I went to Library of Virginia probably October. They have a lot of archivists there. I have to say that our archivists here are 1,000 times better than their archivists. They will sit behind their lovely desks and they will say, go over and look in this file cabinet, and there are like 200 file cabinets. And I found that the technicians, once you got your file or whatever, and they would help you set up and how to read it, they were far more helpful. We spent 2 days and had pretty good ideas of what we wanted to find and didn't. It was very distressing to think that all of that was there, and we felt like there were records there. Somebody just please tell us, show us where to go look. And every 2 hours, they move those people to a different part of the library. So if you find something and you go back to find that archivist, oh, there it's been 2 hours, they are someplace else now. So it was, if you go there, just be aware that you're going to do a lot of work on your own. That's the helpful.
I concur with that. I went 2 years ago, and I did not, it wasn't quite worth the trip. The trip to the courthouse was much more valuable. But you're right, it's much larger than it is here. However, everything here is easily accessible, and there are people here to assist. Okay, also in that are military records for the Revolutionary War. So if you have an ancestor that received a pension or a land grant, and even Lord Dunmore's War, there are payroll lists, which how much did you serve and how much did you make for this. Civil War, there are records, however you have to fault for the South.
And even then,
Chancery records are searchable by names. Not only the name of the principals in the suits, but also any name that appears on that record. And for those of you who are not familiar with Chancery records, they are civil suits. And the reason why they're so important to us is that often if the person died intestate, then trying to divide up the property and being sued by people to whom you owe money, you can get a lot of valuable information. We found one record that was the only record anywhere that this the children on that family. And so it was valuable for that reason. Also, you sometimes get some juicy things with some of the divorce papers, which are included in Chancery records. So we had about 30 pages of one that read like a soap opera. So, if you need entertainment and things like that. Any questions about this? Is there? Yes, sir.
Are you going to cover how you go about getting those records where Native Americans are in your background and they come out of the area, the time that the Johnsons and all the Indian and they came into West Virginia to escape that? Are you going to go through that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wondered if there was something online.
I don't know, but the things that are online, they keep, more and more keeps appearing online. And it's amazing what is available. And it's amazing how many original documents you can find online. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, and I haven't tried, but you've done a lot more research. To help the gentleman who just asked the question, have you researched or are you aware of any of the tribes keep data on any circle websites or anything as far as ancestry goes? Have you ever searched records of, say, Cherokee Nation or Choctaw Nation or anything like that?
I haven't, my son has. He married a full-blooded Lakota Indian. So he has researched hers, but simply by contacting the tribal council and getting information. There's not a whole lot that's available there. There are census records that are available for Indian nations. So I have not done that. Any other questions?
About Kentucky's records.
Yes, sir?
Are Kentucky's and Tennessee's records pretty up to date?
You mean for 1940 or for other records?
If you go back further than that.
Well, you need to get on this site and look and see what is available. For instance, we can do this. That was smart. I did the same thing. Hit escape, and I thought I was hitting escape, and shut it down, didn't I? So we can get online and look and try to answer your question about what is available as soon as it's hibernating. Would anyone like more specific information on searching library material online? Yeah, I think you can feel your way through it, but the first time you do it, it's like, I'm not sure what they want here, but it doesn't take you long, and you can manage to do that.
Yeah, the sad thing about this, sort of, is that, like the census takers who came to your house and wrote down all this stuff, like somebody was supposed to be there, they weren't, so they put absent. They took down the information from who knows who in that household. So the accuracy of that is very questionable. And when you go to try to prove lineage type things, it's really, really difficult to do that because the census records contain so many inaccuracies, the spelling of names, how old they were. It's very frustrating, but there's nothing that can be done, and you can't correct them.
No, you can't correct them. However, what they're really good for are leading you to other sources. Because you can look and you can see, this person reported she had X number of children and 10 children and only 8 are living. What happened to the other 2? And, you know, these were ones who did not live to maturity, you know, to go look for them. Things like that.
Go to obituaries, perhaps newspaper obituaries for the county.
Church records, death records, and just search by surname and the county in which they were living. Okay, you asked about Kentucky, is that right?
Yeah.
Let's see what Kentucky has. Okay. They have marriages online, some death records, and they don't have birth records. Yeah, there are some birth records there. So you can see the numbers of them. So there are a lot of records there. Anything that you learn how to do today, you can apply to any state. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
The family history libraries, okay, when you go to them, are the people there, like, you can't count for 250 or how many there are, but in general, if I were to go to one, I think there's one at Sicily. If I were to go there, would that person be able to actually help me find records, or are they? Okay.
Just like, I mean, they're all volunteers. So you may get someone who really, that's their thing and they know, and lots of times they have local records there. So, you know, for this area, they can assist you in finding things that can be ordered on microfilm. You know, a lot of them are very helpful. There are some who are newbies, you know. Now, if you really want help, you go to Salt Lake and go to that giant building, and one floor is dedicated to foreign countries and another floor, and they have experts who can answer ever so many questions. But
are there other libraries like the one, they're not as big as the one in Salt Lake, they're all just, it's either Salt Lake or local.
or local. And what they're trying to do is to put all coming slowly. Well, actually, it's coming pretty rapidly. Who would have thought that this much would be up online already? But it is happening, and there are volunteers from other countries who are indexing in foreign languages. So these records are going up and will be accessible, but it will take time. It's amazing that they have done as much as they have in the short time that they've been doing this. But,
I went to Salt Lake City and spent a week and came back to Charleston and found what I was looking for.
did you really? That- Yes, sir.
In reference to the other library, a very, very good library is in Allen County, Indiana, and it's within driving distance. In some cases, I found of a particular book, I find 3 copies of that book in that library. Is that good?
And one of the librarians there had done a lecture that's on the web on utilizing census records prior to 1850, and it is excellent.
What is the name of it again?
Allen County, Indiana. It's in Fort Wayne.
They're the ones that put up the census records for the United States online. Not, you know, you have to browse through them, but it's no worse. Well, it's actually easier on guys than browsing through all the microfilm census records. And it helps to know the handwriting things. Years ago, I conned my husband into searching a reel of microfilm for his family, Bess. Well, he went through the whole reel and said, there wasn't a single Bess on there. And that's it. There was one in the first 5 pages. I did not explain to him what a double S looked like. Well, that cured him. It was like, I'm not doing this again. You know, it helps to know what handwriting was like in the period in which you are searching. Any other questions, comments?
So like, if you're specifically looking for Civil War ancestor records, you should contact the United Daughters of Confederacy. Because if anybody has ever applied to be a member, they have all those records. United Daughters, there's a chapter in Huntington, and there's one in Barbersville, and there's a fairly defunct chapter in Charleston. But, I mean, people aren't interested, but I just went through this with my daughter 2 months ago for a scholarship, so they have them.
Say that again, please.
United Daughters of the Confederacy and the Sons of Confederate Veterans, you actually have to prove your lineage to be a member, just like Daughters of the Revolution. And so if anybody's already done that in your bloodline, they have those records.
Yes, sir.
Greg's pretty good at it here too.
You have.
Yeah, Greg, I looked for some of mine and couldn't find them at all. And when I mentioned it to Greg, he said, oh yeah, I got those. Went right to it, pulled it up.
Good. Great work. Any other comments, questions? Yes, sir. It would be a big one. Yes. And another thing for researching census records, if you don't find the person you're looking for, search for another person in that household. Because sometimes names get butchered and you just can't find them. And if that doesn't work, then you work on the last name. And see, O's can look like A's, and E's can look like S's, believe it or not. Depends upon the handwriting. And try to explore that one. And then that fails, then go and go page by page. And I had to go page by page on a family, and I understood why it wasn't indexed. The census taker had written over top of the surname, so it was totally illegible. And the only reason I knew was I knew all the children, and, the first names were right in the family. But there was no way that anyone could have indexed that surname because of what the census taker had done. So, keep looking. Sometimes they just aren't found. And I think sometimes they weren't home and the census taker didn't come back. And I know from my own family, in the 2000 census, we had our son living with us and his family. So there were 14 people in our household. And they wouldn't all fit on the form. And I marked, well, we have 8 children, and so I marked for them to call back, and no one ever did. So there were 4 people who were missing on that census. Things like that happen, even now. That's what I get in that we have such a big family. Anyone else? Well, thank you so much.
On behalf of the Archives and History Library, we would like to thank Mary Glass for a wonderful and informative